let's bring the Wednesday, November 13th, 2019 Dune City Council regular meeting to order, please. Do we have a roll call?
Yes, Mayor Forsyth,
Here.
Councilor Duke Wells,
Here.
Councilor Tom Mallon,
Here.
Councilor Robert Orr,
Here.
Councilor Sheldon Meyer. Gotta throw me off. Councilor Alan Montgomery,
Here.
Councilor Susan Snow.
Here.
We have a full house.
Thank you. Would you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. At this point, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda. You all have the modified agenda. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, it's approved. Entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So
moved. Third.
Amended bills.
With the amended bill, with the amended bills.
Who was the first and second?
First and second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Would you like to do the announcements, Jim?
Sure. A roundtable discussion with the Oregon Land Conservation and Development Commission is scheduled for noon on November 21st at the Reedsport City Hall in Reedsport. And a representative from Dune City will be present. Dune City will close at noon on Wednesday, November 27th and reopen regular hours on December 2nd, 2019. The Oregon Land Use Law Conference in Portland is December 4th through the 5th. And if anyone is interested in attending, please contact Dune City for more information. The Oregon Fish and Wildlife Service will be conducting deer inventories in this area between now and the end of December. This process requires shining spotlights into yards late at night. I have requested that I be notified of exact dates so I can notify individuals included on our interested parties list, in hopes of reducing the number of phone calls regarding intruders during those times.
First shots fired.
Or shots fired. If you are not on the interested parties list, please contact City Hall to be added. And that's it.
Thank you. We have citizen input. Thank you. Yeah. Alan Snow. Is he here?
Yes. I have some questions. My understanding is that we've been funded for a trail between Westlake and Darlings, and the questions I have is, how is that trail going to be sited, or has it been sited?
We are currently in negotiations for acquisition of the property, and there may be an opportunity that, it may fall out. We don't have anything secure yet.
But will there be an option for citizen input on the siting of the trail?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
And just curious, what's the time frame for this trail? What are you looking at? What are you proposing?
The grant is merely for acquisition with an assurance that we will have some action taken within 2 years.
Within 2 years, okay. The other concern is, will it be a park along the trail?
At this point in time, it's still just acquisition of land.
It's just acquisition, it's not a trail, it's not any infrastructure.
Right, there has to be a planning phase where we decide what we want to accomplish with it and how are we going to go about doing that. Like you said, siting, I have already discussed the possibility of siting. I'm expecting to get a scope of work with an estimated cost from an engineering firm, at least with regard to topography, because it has everything from wetlands to really high dunes. And so we're still in baby stages. We're still just trying to acquire the property right now.
All right.
That's the big focus.
There was just concerns, there's been neighbors talking about they don't want it to become a homeless
I agree.
center.
We don't
And I'll just be frank, most of the citizens are really not interested in the trail. the ones that be impacted.
Well, we did a feasibility study. Dune City paid for a feasibility study, and it came across clearly that the citizens were interested and would use it.
Well, ours is just generic, it's ones that right where the trail would be and impacted by that.
Right, I don't,
I mean, it's just
I
one-
understand that.
And those are, we don't want it, you know, so let's just, you know.
Thank you, Alan.
Okay.
Gary?
Well, I had the same issue as Alan about this trail, wanted to know what's going on. And I hear some information here from Jamie. But,
It sounds like we may need to have, well, there's really no point if we don't buy it, you know, if the property
Yeah,
owners
we can't
don't accept
acquire
it.
it based on the negotiations we've been having, and it's moot.
It's moot anyway.
Okay.
I know, I talked to Archie Vermilia, who's on the other end of the trail. There's about 10 houses there, none of them are for the trail. Everybody on this end of the trail is not for it at all. And so I don't know who it is that wants to walk between the two places, but
Mostly the businesses,
businesses.
yeah, mostly the businesses would like to improve the economy and for their businesses.
Yeah.
And then a whole bunch of residents who actually grew up here and would love to see the trail restored, because there used to be a trail there.
Yep.
There was, it used to be connected.
Yeah. I've been here for 60 years and I've never seen a trail through there, so,
Me either, but I haven't been here that long.
yeah. Okay, I just wanted to find out about it and see what was happening.
Thank you, Gary.
Julia?
I'm here about the deer. I'm one of the people that kind of complained about the whole deer problem. It looks like it's being addressed. My question is, have we had anything from Fish and Game of what happens if they decide there is a lot of deer, which, you know, they're impacted by that, we are really impacted by this.
We'll be talking about it.
Okay.
Well, that was in my report tonight, is that the Fish and Wildlife representative will come and speak at the December meeting of the city council.
Okay.
And that's why they're gonna be shining lights into the property and stuff.
Right, this is after they,
They're gonna shine the lights for a while and then they're gonna make a report to us.
Make a head
at
count.
the- At the next
They're doing a
meeting.
head count, census.
yeah.
They can come during the day. We have to chase them out of the yard so we can do anything anyway. But that was my concern.
Okay, thank you. Bonnie?
What she said, the deer. They are totally plaguing us, totally. And they didn't used to be so bad, but we have a guy who comes from this neighborhood across the bridge. We live over across the bridge. Every morning, every evening, and feeds them. We've asked him and asked him not to feed them. He says, I love deer, and keeps on feeding them. And so now the deer are becoming kind of aggressive. I just about got mugged for eating a Triscuit on my deck by a bug. And we have vacation rentals over there. I mean, it could be a real problem with it if somebody got hurt, knocked down by a deer. But please help us. Our yards are just bunches of sticks.
Yeah,
Thank you and for listening to me gripe.
that's quite right.
May I make a comment on that?
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, I hope this message can be broadcast even more than it already has, and that is that feeding the deer is not helping them, because it draws them closer to civilization where they can be harmed. It makes them a nuisance where they may have to be dealt with, and I just hope that all of our citizens can recognize that if we love deer, we shouldn't feed them.
And we've had a lot more trouble with bear this summer too, because
Yeah.
that brings in, and
Yes.
the cougar, that brings in those things too that we have to deal with.
Bonnie
Thank you.
Allen?
Excuse me?
Bonnie
The
Allen?
next Bonnie.
Yeah, the second one.
So I moved here about 7 years ago, and I'm an avid gardener, and I was very excited about gardening and envisioned all kinds of things, which I planted only to find in the morning they were gone. One time I just went to tea from the front of my house to the back of my house, and in that time they had ripped out everything I had planted in that afternoon.
That's what they do.
But this is what I would like to say. I knew that there were deer here when I moved here. This is a very natural area and I enjoyed that. And I had an option, which is I put up a fence. And in that time, the deer have not bothered my yard, and it is very nice to my view. I have an option and the deer don't. And that culling is a euphemism for killing. And that I suggest that we find a way to accommodate our needs in consideration of theirs. One option might be to increase the fence limit from 6 feet to 8 feet. But I would like to see not only a humane solution, but a solution that is considerate of the wild animals in this community.
Thank you, Susan.
Am I allowed to respond to that?
I'll make a response, okay? Since our last meeting, since this has come to a head, I've seen him, I hit a deer a couple of months ago, $1,000 to $2,000 worth of damage to my truck, middle of the day. It's a real problem. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I deer hunt, I elk hunt, I do all that stuff. I didn't like the plan that ODFW had of coming in and culling him by killing him, because I don't believe it's the deer's fault. I don't believe it's the citizens' fault. Other there's a few folks in there that are feeding them way too much and bringing them in. I think that's it, but I still don't feel that it's the deer's fault. I think it goes back to having too many deer in Dune City, having too many bear in Dune City, and one that I seen about 6 months ago at about 9 o'clock in my mailbox was a cougar. Now you're getting into some real serious problems when you start having cougars at daytime, where there's children around. To me, the problem isn't Dune City, isn't the deer, and isn't the citizens of Dune City. The problem is ODFW. I remember it was in the early 90s, they stopped dog hunting with dogs for cats and bears. Ever since then, the cat and bear population has got out of control. With that, it kept the cats and the bears pushed back away from people, and we did not have a problem with cats and bears in any of the cities around. I logged for almost 30 years, and it was very rare. I was up before daylight every morning to ever see a cat. It was a pretty rare experience. But now you're seeing them around and hearing of them in Dune City. I believe it goes back to ODFW's fault. I'm for removing some deer from Dune City. I heard they said they just wanted to kill them and take the meat to the Camp Florence or something. I don't think that's the answer. They made a point that to move them, they wouldn't transport. That's baloney. They will transport. We transported a bunch of blacktails from Oregon up to Alaska, and they're doing quite well up there in Alaska now. So they will move. I just don't think ODFW wants to mess with the trouble and the expense of taking them, catching them, and moving them up into the woods. And so I'm for getting rid of the deer because I believe they're a nuisance here, but I'm not for killing them outright and having, whatever how they want to kill them, but they still end up dead. But I think they need to put on their big boy pants and come and capture them and move them out of the city, is what I think. So that's it. Thank you.
Julianne, did you have something you wanted to say?
I was just going to respond to her in that because of what I'm seeing the deer eating, it's because they're not doing well out in the woods. They're eating things that they wouldn't normally eat. And this is telling me that's an overpopulation problem for the deer.
Oh, yeah.
And so they need to either be removed and placed elsewhere or killed. Because the bears and the cougars are coming in because there's an overpopulation of deer, and that's what they're eating.
And I believe that your point was that it goes even further back when all of a sudden we couldn't hunt correctly the cougar to keep that population down. It's grown, it has to move, and where does it move? In where there's an overpopulation.
I was looking on YouTube, and they estimated the population of cougar, is what I was looking at, in Oregon is 6,000. I think they're way off on that. I think there's a lot more than 6,000 cougars in Oregon.
When I lived in the city, I lived in Florence, in Shelter Cove. I had cougar come up out of the river and walk right in through my yard. I mean, it was,
I think I think there's plenty of feed for deer out in the woods. There's a lot of feed out there of what they eat. I think a lot of there's two reasons I think we have so many deer in Dune City. They're coming here to be around homes to be safe. I think they're getting out of the woods because they're getting preyed on so much by the cats out there that they feel safer. And then they've had so many generations of babies here, and this is just home to them now.
and when we start to see twins and triplets.
Yeah, life is good.
Yeah.
And thank you for saying that you'd like to see them taken away rather than killed. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Marty, you got something?
I should put, if I knew what some of the conversation is, and this is not a public hearing or open meeting, but first thing is, I personally would want to walk from where I live through the trail to the lake, to the post office and back, because I need the exercise and I don't like to walk on the road. So there's people who don't have to put up with people walking there, I understand that. The other thing is, the ODFW hunting with dogs, that was a public initiative petition put out to the voters. And that isn't ODFW's, that was us shooting ourselves in the foot.
Well, there are people in Salem voting on something that doesn't have anything to do with it.
Yep.
Bonnie?
Just one more option that
Sure.
might be considered, which I've seen effective in other areas, which is birth control for the deer.
Right. They do.
Yeah, they do that all the time, and it is effective.
Yep. All right. And which would be a good conversation for people to come in here next meeting when ODF and W. Jerry? Jerry Perrin?
I'm Jerry Curran. I live at 5600 Shady Lane in Florence. Been here for about 12 years. Love it. It's absolutely gorgeous place. And I really wanted to question the water testing at Little Wohink, establishing benchmarks. I'd like to know really what we're going to do there. I had heard that it was turned down by the council because it was too expensive. It's not going to cost any more money than it already does. It's all run by volunteers. I think we really need to seriously look at that, because with this new proposed building area by Little Wohink, it's really in danger of being destroyed. And when that goes, Wohink goes. When that goes, Silkus goes. And then we all go. Our property values go down. We really need to look at how important it is to maintain the quality of the water here. We have great water. The samples we send out come back and they're perfect. They're better than Florence, quite honestly. But we need to really get serious about what we're doing. Not just Wohink, but the other people that live off of Wohink that have a lake that could be contaminated and destroyed by proposed construction. So I think we really need to seriously look at it and spend some time putting a program together where we can take care of the maintenance of all the water around it, because it affects us every day. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. We're going to be looking at all sorts of water issues, so it's really good. Thank you for bringing it up, reminding us as we get into this water issues that we have, to keep that in mind. Rick Briggs, is it?
Yeah, I just signed up to give Jerry extra minutes if he if he needed them. Thanks.
All right, thank you very much. That's it. Presentation training, Jenny?
The next one is L5. That is the last class, I believe. Congratulations to Counselor Mallon. He is the salutatorian, since we already have the valedictorian. He has completed all of his classes.
Good job.
If you need help, you can come on down here. We did some training this afternoon with John Allen to help Alan. So
I think I need the link to it. I think I asked last month, or the last time I was here. I don't remember It's not the only link he's missing.
Okay, I will resend you the email.
There's several, but, you know, that particular one, if you send it.
Resend the mayor the email.
All right, old business. Update residents' request on ordinance regarding deer.
Right, I'm gonna do the update now. We have had a formal complaint filed, and I believe there are copies of that in your packet with really pretty pictures. And I did talk to Jason at the Fish and Wildlife office in Newport, which is our primary office. And I also spoke with Stuart, who is at the Coos Bay office. Jason and another individual are the two for our area and whatever area they cover. And I think his name is Greg or Gary. But anyway, he's off because his wife is having a baby, and so he's home helping take care of his wife and baby. So Jason's trying to handle this statewide issue because it's statewide. I don't know if it's because the weather was so odd and dry this year, but the berries came off too early. The bear are hungry and they're looking. The deer was a problem earlier in the year too, but that's why the city council adopted an ordinance to make feeding the deer a violation, a nuisance violation. So, but I react to complaints. I don't know, I don't drive around looking for stuff. So if someone can help me, maybe I can plant myself out there early in the morning with a cup of coffee and get my own pictures. But so we'll work on that. And again, Jason said he would come to the December 11th meeting to speak with the city council.
Good.
And there was a cougar spotted in the Clear Lake Boy Scout Road area.
When we set that up with the DFW, can we make sure that it's in a manner that folks can speak to them rather than...
So like a presentation, so questions
Yeah,
can
we'd
be
rather have a
asked.
presentation, because, you know, the citizens need to be able to voice something with them. We need to be able to talk to them about, you know, hunting processes. I mean, because, again, just like everything we do here with, I want to go beyond just, you know,
So you want to call it an open discussion?
yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Because I want to go beyond the, well, because that's what it says in the book. You know, it's like, well, we'll feed that book to the deer. I mean, you know, do something with it. We just, you know, I don't want somebody to come in and go, oh, that's the rule. Water testing on Little Woolly.
This is on the agenda because in doing the review of the findings and order regarding that particular subdivision, the Little Woolly Phase 3, we have a finding in there, an order, instruction, a condition, excuse me, that's the word I'm looking for, a condition in there that says that if there is ever a degradation in the quality of the water in Little Woolly, then the developer has to do something to correct it or stop what he's doing until it's corrected. The problem with that is we have no benchmark to start. And the problem with our water quality committee doing it is many of them have a personal interest. And so which is understandable, we all live here, we should all have a personal interest. So the recommendation is that we try and find some uninterested third party to come in and do the basic testing to give us a starting point. And then we can go from there as to what happens. Then it'd be okay if our regular testers want to go ahead and do it and all that stuff.
Sure.
But right now I am I have approached Rich Little, I think his last name is Little. He's with the Center of Lakes and Reservoirs at the University of Portland. And I'm waiting for a response to find out if he would be willing to come do that testing. An interested third party provide that. And I have met with Steve Hager, who is our assistant, our helper on our water testing program, to identify which tests should be done. So we've discussed that and decided on the list of tests to be done, and now I'm just trying to find somebody else to do it.
over what period, length of time would it take to set a benchmark? How many tests is there?
Well, you've usually got to do a test in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall, but the biggest test that can tell the difference and set is after a storm. So if we don't get a storm, then we're not going to get the really good test.
For the runoff.
For the runoff, right. And so we'll just have to hope and pray weather cooperates with whomever we find to do those tests. But I do need permission from you to do that because it doesn't come free. I have not yet, but will be contacting the developer and encouraging him to assume that liability. There was some discussion towards that in the beginning, and so we'll just follow up with that and see. I have talked to him and he agreed that it definitely needs to be done, so.
Okay. Thank you. Set a town hall meeting
You had told me to set it for early November.
somewhere.
It's early November.
Yeah. Where are they at?
Yeah. I'm recommending perhaps after the first of the year.
Grab a date.
Okay.
Let's talk to them and see.
Do you want to go ahead and set it, or after, bearing in mind that after the first of the year, we'll go into goal setting, and when we finish goal setting, it'll be March, and it's time to start into budget again.
Okay.
Good January.
January? What time, what date in January? You tell me, you give me a date, and we will do it. For the West, can we ask the Westlake residents that are present? There's a number of them here.
A lot of the Westlake residents are not here in January
Oh, okay.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
because a lot of them are,
That's when they plan to be out of here.
I know Gary's gone in January, but not only that, a lot of them, they just come during for the summer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
They're not here year round.
Okay.
Only about half the residents
So
are here
July
year
would be
round.
better?
I don't know when they
August?
start coming back, but I know Gary's gone in January.
When we, yeah, Gary used to come back.
Around
September? Oh, Easter, he came back in the spring.
A lot of them plan to be in Australia or fixed leave for January, February. That's what the people from Westlake told me. They said, well, in the winter you want to plan your vacations to be gone.
So it's
So April, May?
spring, more of a,
I would think that that would be better. Gary's been here longer and
I'd ask him, he knows the Westlake people.
Gary, pick a date.
Or at least a month.
A month, anyway.
Well, we usually leave about Christmas, get back in April.
All right, so late April, May, something.
Yeah.
All right.
How about right after we finish budget? We usually finish budget in May.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And budget meeting.
It's time, well, past time for our quarterly budget meeting. And so when do you want me to set it? Do you want me to try to put it before the December council meeting, make it earlier in the day? Is that what's
Sure,
best
works
for
for me.
everybody?
Yeah, that's fine.
And our only other budget committee member, does that work for you?
Anytime, the only problem I have is that I wish that we had goal setting so we can set a budget to match the goal settings, and it's not gonna happen.
Well, it's not time to work on that yet, so
Yeah.
bring that up at the budget committee.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
did last year.
I know.
I was there.
Anytime's fine, I'll be here.
All right.
Okay.
Tell us about PERS.
All right, I'm going to try to sound unbiased on this. When I handed you that information with all the numbers about the actuarial and what had to be the lump sum payment and how much was going to be the match and all that stuff, it basically said that if we paid $54,002 or something along those lines, they would match an additional $13,000 some odd dollars. I don't know if you remember seeing that or not.
Right.
And it would reduce, and we had that sheet that shows how long, and by 3035, we're down to nothing, it's everything paid off. So I made the application based on that. We were awarded. However, in the letter of award, they said, oh, but those numbers were wrong. We're only going to the $54,000 is to pay off this unmatched thing that's been sitting there and is overdue, okay? And that, we can't match that part. You can only match the remainder of it. Well, that part is $33,000, so the match would only be as to $20,000, so it ends up being $5,000. And then in order to participate in the program, you have to pay $1,000 to the actuarial to do the calculation. So we're only looking at, instead of getting, you know, $12,000 help, we're only going to get about $4,000 of help. So I just wanted to make sure, I mean, that was a big difference for me to decide on my own that, yeah, we'll go ahead and move forward. I didn't withdraw our application, but I did put it off implementation until after the first of the year. So I'll leave it to you guys. I really did feel kind of like it was bait and switch. You know?
Kind of like the Oregon kicker.
So, didn't feel quite right about it, but they've been upfront and talking to me and very helpful and trying to get ways to resolve the issue. But so whatever you think, we're still going to get the savings. It would still end up with it being paid off
Too
by
far into it now.
Yeah.
We got to pay it off.
2037. That's when it would finally be paid off, is 2037.
It really doesn't affect my thought or my decision on it. It's something we've got to do, and it's just a matter of it costs us a little more to get done than what it was going to. And having them change their mind doesn't seem to be
Out of the ordinary.
that uncommon nowadays. No surprise. Anything else?
Is that okay with everybody? So do I do this? Well, I prefer it be a vote, so can you take a vote? What-
Sure. All in favor of continuing?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
No executive session. Holiday office closure? Termination, I thought you just said we're.
That's Thanksgiving.
Oh.
Christmas, for the last 2 years, we have closed between Christmas and New Year's. And that is what the office staff would like, but it's up to you guys whether you want to close that long, which I think is only like 2 days. I don't know, I don't have the calendar in front of me.
2 work days. You're off Friday anyway, and it's, Thursday and Monday.
Yeah.
Oh, and Tuesday, because you get New Year's off, not New Year's Eve.
Right,
So
right,
it's 3
right.
days.
So it's 3 days off in a row.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Thank you.
Need a vote or just a thumbs up?
You think we need to make them vote? Nah, we're good.
All right. Okay, next item is actually mine. The title is not misleading, but the title is because we had so many discussions for the last year off and on our city and how we're doing financially and how we're performing and not performing and that sort of thing. What I wanted to bring you guys up to date with is, and I sent information to Jamie already, so it's not a surprise. We had, I don't know how many months ago, that we'd asked Arnie Roland and Kathy McEwen to look into whether the taxing, no, what's it called? Share revenue. Shared revenue is if we were getting everything we were supposed to, or if there was anything that we weren't supposed to get to, we were having it. If any of you have ever tried to read the ORSs and try to follow them and make sense of them, it's not an easy task. Well, they still hadn't responded, so the other night I sent a note to Arnie's office and said, look, it's been a while, can you tell me what's going on? And Rosie responded. To her credit, it was after hours that she did respond, and she said, well, I know somebody, let's check with him. And so she sent me to a gentleman named Mark
Garst.
G-H-A-R-S-T, I think. Now, Mark works for the League of Oregon Cities. And when you look him up, the reason that he's knowledgeable is that he's a past employee of the Oregon Department of Revenue. So he's highly familiar with these monies. So what he did is he sent me a copy, and how many of the, besides the liquor and cigarette tax, how many other?
The only other is the gas tax. The only other is the gas tax. The marijuana is part of the OLCC tax, which is the liquor tax.
Okay. And road, we get?
Well, that's the gas tax, that's the ODOT apportionment.
Okay. So, what he did, he sent me the ORS 221.770. And in that process of these funds that we get, we're supposed to enter them into our budgets and do these different things. The very last one on this cigarette and liquor tax, the last requirement is that we be a tax levy city, which we are not. The other ones we get don't require that, but the liquor and cigarette does. So now, looking at that ORS and having somebody of that nature that is familiar with this, I don't think, we had a lawyer here some time back and he told us his legal expertise was don't ask, don't tell. I don't function that way. I want to know whether it's real or not real or if we're doing the right thing. So if it's okay with you guys, unless Jamie's done something different since the emails back and forth, and it was just, I think, today that she got it. I'd really like for Jamie to make a phone call directly to the Department of Revenue and find out exactly why they've been sending us the money. If the ORS, maybe the ORS just hasn't been rewritten. But if we're getting money that we're not following those requirements, I'd kind of like to know on their end too, is why are they not following their own ordinances? And find out, this is the issue and what do they expect from us? Mark was concerned. He said, you may want to get your lawyers involved real quick in case they want money back. We've been getting, Jamie, do you remember, has it been for like ever that we've been getting? Yeah. So, I mean, could be 40 years we've been getting this stuff and we're not supposed to.
We might be grandfathered. The attorney said we might be grandfathered.
Yeah.
Might be, you want to find out if we are.
So,
it amounts to about $100,000 a year, isn't it?
well, he sent me a listing because there's a website you can go to and look up every payment you have been receiving. And so far this year, it's it didn't end this month. It ended like in September on the graph, and it was $40,000 iffy, something like that. I mean, you had to add it all up because it's never the same. It's not like a payment. So, yeah, and it can fluctuate, obviously.
Yes.
So, if you folks agree, I'd really like to give that direction to Jamie and have her make that phone call. And let's start down the road of finding out where we're at. This could be, I mean, this literally could be as much as $90,000 or $100,000 out of our budget. And that's why we tried to pass that tax last year.
Yeah.
Was to, in case that we were wrong, or not wrong, but in case we weren't supposed to, that we could try to cover that in anything but the public didn't want to do that. So, Jamie, if you would, I know you're busy, but I think that's a phone call that needs to be made. If you want to make it, do you want me to make it?
No, I can make it.
Okay.
Before we
You want me to
make that phone call, should we be consulting with our attorney?
He's the one that told us not to ask.
Well, I know. Well,
that's not true.
my concern.
What he said was, it is the state's decision,
Yeah.
and it's not ours to come forward and do the state's job. That's what he said. He said it's for the
And
state to do.
I don't function that way.
Understood.
But we do notify the state every year that we do not. They know that. It's on their website. So they're choosing to send it to us. So that's what he was saying. They're choosing to do it knowing full well that we don't collect taxes.
If this person talks to that person.
Well, yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So let's find out.
If the Department of Revenue tells Jamie we're in violation, then I think we need to ask him that same phone call, well, okay, we're in violation. What can we do to fix this? And if it's
the tax thing, the small property tax that failed in when was that, November?
A year ago, November.
A year ago,
Yeah.
Then we need to know that and do it again.
And perhaps this time explain it more carefully, more fully
Yeah.
to our citizens.
Well, and if that's the case, we need to address it differently, because part of our presentation about it is, Jamie, isn't it that one of the problems is once you put that on a ballot, we as a group cannot speak to it.
Correct.
So we couldn't talk to it in meetings, we couldn't tell people what it meant.
That was a problem.
But,
Yes.
but we could do what is done in other situations, is to form a political action committee, which can then explain it.
Exactly.
And that's
Which
not,
we failed.
yes, and that is not a terribly complex process.
Should not be.
Yeah, okay.
Or we just hang out at Darlings.
Yeah, do that.
I like that. I don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Duke's heading that one up.
Okay, you get Tuesday.
Burgers and beer.
Are there 3 other cities that I remember from last year that also were in our same boat?
Mark said he thought there was 10.
10.
There were more than 3.
I'm conflicted on this. I agree that I don't like things, but also you don't rattle the cage.
That's where I'm kind of at too.
Yeah.
But I understand exactly what you're saying. I think that's the right course of action.
It just seems to me as though we need to find an answer.
Yeah.
In history, for the last however many years, the state had decided we deserved it, or earned it, or
Exactly.
warranted. And I can't imagine them, I think that would be a really good argument in terms of continuing to grant us and the other 9 cities, or however many there are, as part of the state of Oregon. It makes the whole state better.
Well, and the simple solution to it is a little bottle of whiteout and take out section D. And everything else then matches all the other.
Yeah.
That was gonna be my comment, was give a call to Arnie Rosewood and say, hey, why is ORS 700, blah, 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 in there?
It's the only one that I saw that had that section on the bottom. And I can't tell you. But, like I said, bottle of whiteout could cure that problem on their part, if that's how they want to deal with it. Okay, we're all good? Anything else on that topic?
Well, I seen it on there, and of course, I thought about different stuff, but you know, why is it? To me, it's important for us to have Dune City as a city.
Yep.
The biggest thing to keep popping up back in my mind is so that the citizens just like this have a voice.
Yeah.
They're not having to try to deal with the state of Oregon or Lane County, you know. And I go back to the building code thing that we went through where they tried to, we're trying to make it where we can't have our own, part-time building inspector, It's just how we have to function. We can't afford to have a full-time building. Those kinds of things, or the marijuana issue, granted, the council before the makeup of this council, which I was part of that council to drop the ball on the marijuana issue, was at least what we have now is we have control of it. There's only going to be X amount, there's not going to be any more. When that's gone, at least they'll be gone. Those kinds of things. And then the water issues. If each individual person drawing water from here was dealing with it themselves, it'd be over with already. We wouldn't be having this conversation now. So that's why, having the citizens of this area having a voice is, I think, one of the biggest reasons to have a city, so we have representation.
Zoning and land use, very important. The state is trying to, and they have implemented additional housing units and that type of thing, which I would like to control in our little city. Boy, you put an additional housing unit on every lot here, and all of a sudden, wells are running dry and septics are running over. We don't have the infrastructure in any way for it. And that needs to be controlled locally also.
That's one of the good reasons for maintaining local control of various issues.
And that's, I think, is what I've been seeing, the more I look into it, the reason to deal with League of Oregon Cities is you know, they've got all the cities involved, whether it's a big city or a small city, and they, you know, drop, and what happens in Salem seems to always be, you know, one size fits all. And, you know, they're not dealing with drilled wells that are, you know, 100 feet from a septic, and they're not dealing with water that comes out of a lake. So they need to continually be reminded that that doesn't work for everyone in the state, that there is a big rural issues out here. And so, yes, I certainly agree. The flip side of that, though, is we have to be able. Jamie can't do everything, even though she.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I am. She can't do everything. She's not, and we've got to be able to have revenue that sustains the amount of people that we have that work in these offices, that sustain this building and the things about us, and we have to find out. I mean, Jamie, if you had to go out and do citations on complaints, that's the other thing that failed on our ballot. Jamie would have to explain how you would have to take care of that.
Okay. It would be as if I am the judge.
Right.
And the investigator. I'd have to investigate the complaint and then make a determination. In some instances, I would have a hearing if I couldn't find, you know, cut and dry proof. I would have a hearing to hear both sides of the story. And then after that, I would have to enter findings of fact, conclusions of law, and an order, and calculate the fine based on code, depending on our code section, as well as assess an interest rate for failure to pay within a certain time frame. And then I would have to have that served on the individual, which is the hard part. It's really hard to find somebody to do service around here. And then they have 10 days to file an appeal to the city council of the decision. And if they file that appeal, then we schedule it for hearing. And that would be in your, it's not legislative, that would be in your quasi-judicial realm. And then, or if they don't appeal and the time for appeal lapses, then I am at liberty to place a lien on the property. I don't have to go to court for that. I can do that here in the office. Or whatever, you set out a whole bunch of things that I am now allowed to do. I can negotiate a settlement, I can do abatement, I can do all these different things. So it gives a lot of options to people who are perhaps not complying with code because they can't afford something. That means I can work with them on that, and we can work it out.
Sounds like a lot of work for you, but it also sounds like a very powerful tool. That should put fear into people that are not doing the right thing out there.
Well, it should, but right now I'm hand entering 250 water measurements and having to do the calculations. You know, and I'm having to answer the telephone and do things. And you know how we just had that problem with something that happened 10 years ago? We got one that we're working on, just got the attorney calls, that happened in 1992. And it's a big mess that the council didn't, or not that we're able to find, that the council didn't take care of. They just threw a knee-jerk reaction, notice out there, we're not going to recognize this, and then it was forgotten. Well, it's not forgotten anymore now because it's causing a problem with some property owners. So that's the kind of thing that really takes a lot of time. But now that the water is in place, this is the first year that I think it's going to be right. I can turn it over to another staffer and feel comfortable in making sure that they do it and they can and I don't have to do that anymore. I already have turned septic over to the administrative assistant. I don't have to do those anymore unless it's a true violation where they absolutely refuse. We've sent a certified letter and they didn't respond. Then I get involved and that's when I do the findings and the order and all that stuff. So that's how it works.
Point being, it's too much for one person to be doing. And that's one that is simple to remedy. And that was simply by changing the point of complaint and hearing to the local jurisdiction, closest jurisdiction, and out of City Hall. And that's all it was. And that didn't pass either. So we've got to get out there, start explaining these things. I can't even imagine why we would have turned that down, but we obviously didn't expect.
It was education.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like education. So those types of things we have to do. It is not efficient and it is not healthy for one person to be trying to do all these things that we expect them to do and expect them to do in detail. I don't know if any of you, I'm sure some of you have sat down and tried to read ORSs. And when you're starting to jump from 460, from 486 down to 221 and back again, trying to figure out what we're supposed to be doing on taxation and that sort of thing. I mean, you can go brain dead in an hour with these things. So we need to do this differently. We need to address it differently, and hopefully we can start to get some education out there on some of the things that we feel we need to do. And that's one of the reasons I brought it up, but the other one is exactly that. We may be facing some issues financially with the Department of Revenue. I have a feeling we're not gonna be, but we really gotta find out. Yeah, we gotta fix it. We gotta make sure it's right. Right. Anything else? Mayor's report, I think I've talked enough. Councilor Wells, Community Center.
Well, we cleaned out the back gutters and cleaned the roof off the kiosk, but we haven't had any rain yet to see if the gutters work. So we'll wait for some rain.
I do have a little more on the community, on City Hall.
Yeah.
The pump went out, so we had to replace the pump. In the process, the pressure tank went out, and so now the pressure tank has been replaced. But because it sat and ran for so long, now the filtration material needs to be replaced. I'm asking the company to give me a quote for that. I don't know what that will be, but right now we were without water. I had to have the pump replaced and the pressure tank replaced. Which is why if you run into the toilet or turn on the water's brown. That's why we're getting it flushed out.
Is that sand or the documentation service? Iron.
It's iron, right? It's iron.
No,
I mean, the
Filtration. Westlake, there's iron here.
The filtration media is what he was talking about.
Oh, that's charcoal.
It's charcoal and quartz mixture and some other gravelly type of component.
I love it when you talk technical.
Gravelly.
Gravelly.
Kind of like a fish tank.
Yeah. Councilor Snow, water report.
Well, we have two great teams that do water quality reporting on Mohink and Siltcoos. But we'd like more volunteers. Jamie, can we advertise for more volunteers? And we talked to Jamie where we need some things for testing, and she's on top of that. Her and Stephen are working that with the state. And November is usually the last time that we test the lakes, but we're going to do one more in Siltcoos when they finally get the dam open, since they have not opened the dam yet, because that changes the variation in the water quality. So we're going to test once more.
Okay.
Bring some salmon in too.
Yeah, doesn't rain.
As of right now, the dam was open 2 days and that wasn't long enough, and the test that we got back, Steve said, yeah, it'd be better if we test after the dam was open, so we're going to test again.
Okay. Thank you. Public Works.
We haven't done anything on Public Works lately.
Okay.
That's all I know.
Emergency Services, I saw that you were gone.
I was gone, and while I was gone, they canceled the WeLog meeting for October because they didn't have a quorum. Apparently others were gone as well. And so we will meet again in November. However, I've already been to 4 or 5 conferences now on emergency preparedness just since I got home. So.
And City Administrator's report.
Let's see, we had 11 permits issued in October, 5 mechanical, 3 electrical, 1 plumbing, 1 structural, and 1 grading permit. And I want to shout out a big thank you to Rapunzel, who filled in for me while I was gone, taking care of my parents. She did a very good job, and I had a full staff when I got back, so that's always good. The auditor sent me some follow-up questions, which I answered today. At the time of writing, I hadn't answered those questions yet, but they were answered today. Water meter readings are done, and I am entering the data for the report that was due October 30th. But the fact that it was due October 30th and I'm late is great compared to the year before when it had been 6 years since they had reported, since they were reported. So I'm getting it. There was the whole PERS issue that has been nagging at me, but we have a decision now, so we'll move forward. South Coast Water District experienced a line break, but that has now been repaired, and they also searched for another break. And what it turned out to be is that there was a property owner that was removing trees from the property, and they were falling on the water line and breaking the water lines. So they figured out what was going on and fixed it. A long-standing complaint, it's one of those arguments between neighbors where the he said, she said thing. I had moved it into the enforcement phase, and then both of them lawyered up. So they're all lawyered up, and I'm gonna bow out until they finish fighting each other. I've received information. Okay, this one bothers me a lot. I have received information from a new property owner that his grading contractor told him he did not have to get a permit from Dune City. The property in question is in close proximity to the Woahink Lake shoreline, and cuts made in the grade exceed 6 feet in depth. Not only was this information incorrect, what was done was also a violation of state law and of course Dune City Code. A report is in progress to the State Contractors Board regarding the violation, as well as the Department of Environmental Quality. And I am giving notice to all local contractors that if they fail to comply with Dune City Code, they will be fined and or have their Dune City business licenses revoked, as well as be reported to the State Contractors Board. I'm tired of it. I am so tired of it. Lastly, the deer count in December. Don't run around nude outside. I don't know.
Has that been a problem?
Actually, yes. Actually, what has been a problem is Airbnb and the people they rent to. But apparently that is now under investigation and changes are being made according to Airbnb.
Thank you. So we're not going to designate one day as nude gardening day?
I don't know. That's up to you guys.
Well, it's the same day we're going to hang it at Darling's.
It comes later. No pun intended.
Oh, there is one more thing. You should have a copy of the letter that I sent to CenturyLink today. I don't know. This is another thing that irritates me, people. One of our employees came home from work, and there was a CenturyLink guy out there removing an old box. Her property, a stream that runs into Silk Cruise Lake, runs right by it. She watched this guy take out the box and all the wiring and throw it into the stream and proceed to put the new box in. Well, so she immediately called what she thought was PUD. Originally, she didn't realize it was a CenturyLink box, so she contacted PUD, and the first thing out of them was, "Oh, we're so sorry, we'll take care of it." They didn't ask where it was or anything, so they didn't realize it wasn't there, but they were apologizing for it. But anyway, she found out it was CenturyLink, and she called CenturyLink and got absolutely no satisfaction from anybody. So we do have a franchise agreement with CenturyLink, so I have written a certified return receipt letter to CenturyLink asking them to please advise their employees not to do that, and that I consider it to be a violation of their agreement. So, because they're supposed to abide by our code, and I guarantee you our code does not say throw trash into the water.
That it?
That's it.
Good in the order.
The scouts have been working on the projects up here, so please go look at the projects. One project is complete, the overlook and the trail down to the river is done. And then we're waiting for a couple items to finish the basketball hoop area. But I want the council to remember that we need to send thank yous to these scouts for their hard work.
Yes.
Was that for an Eagle Scout?
Yes,
Yeah.
to both, or Eagle
Two
Scout
Eagle
projects.
Scouts? All right. Nothing? Sheldon?
No, seriously?
No joke?
I attended the Delta Gamma auction the other night, and Bob Snedden is our auctioneer. And he said that his wife, while he was leaving, said, "No stupid jokes." So when he got there, he said, "Sheldon, no stupid jokes."
Did it work?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Just curious.
They were all intelligent, well thought out.
No. Tom? No, I'm good.
Just to state the obvious after this discussion that we've had is that we are so fortunate to have Jamie and Rapunzel and the staff that we have. You guys are just awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we're adjourned at 7:01. Wow.